Hey, what's up guys, you good Chips in. We're back here today for week 9 of the NPL. Really getting to that end point of the season, so bringing you guys week 9. And this week we're going up against a guy called Aster. He is a guy who replaced Togue in the majors, so Togue drafted the Mega Mawile team and had a pretty poor season and then ended up dropping out due to, real life stuff. I guess he was too busy to play Mons, but Aster did move up from the minors to fill his spot, so yeah, he was already part of the NPL family, I guess, and he moved up to play in the majors for Togue's spot. So Aster isn't having the hottest season. He did inherit a team that people kind of think is kind of subpar. I personally think it's a pretty solid team. Like, I wouldn't say it's a bad team by any means, but a lot of people kind of view it poorly because it just hasn't achieved the results that people expected during the beginning of the season when they saw the likes of Mega Mawile, Z-Laddie, Trick Room plus Whack in like just like a crazy team with like Auraval support. Actually, I think Auraval was something that Aster may have traded to pick up when he replaced Togue, but I think it's definitely a solid team. It just doesn't really fit Aster's playstyle. From what I've heard, he prefers kind of more balanced teams. So it should be an interesting game nonetheless. So like, it is definitely a threatening squad. It's not one you can underestimate. Anytime you see a Mega Mawile, that's going to force a lot of dangerous situations if you don't play properly around that. So he also does have like Taunty, which is just a menace, and stuff like Diggersby, as I mentioned, which can just break a lot, as well as stuff like Rotom C, which is pretty solid versus my team. So I'm going to jump into the team of 6 that I have brought today. Had a few different teams as usual built for this game, but opted to go with this one because I felt as though it provided me with the best response against stuff like Tornadus, Latios, as well as his Trick Room Mons like Marowak and Mawile, even Diggersby under Trick Room. So I'm going to go into the team. The first one you guys can see here is my Suicune. Now, rocking a pretty Spadef Coon this week, and there's a very good reason for that. His Tornadus is a big threat to my team. Checking the likes of Diancie with Iron Tail or HP Steel, or I think it may even get Steel Wing. I don't know about that, but it's a big threat to my team. Torn, basically with the right coverage, can really like wear down my checks to it. Sail Stealer obviously takes on Hurricane variants, but then Heat Wave is a thing, Knockoff is a thing, so if I'm like lefties, Spadef, he can just knock off my lefties, proceed to whittle me down with Heat Wave. Like as I mentioned, Diancie is not a check because it does get steel coverage. I have a few obviously bulky mons on my team that can kind of check it, like Togetic, but then it's like vulnerable to getting knocked off. It's just not as nice a check as something like Suicune can be here. Obviously I do have Pillar Swan as well, which would be a pretty solid check, but again, if he knocks off, he can just U-turn out, get all that regen back. What Suicune does is it allows me to firstly scout for his Iron Tail. So if I'm in a situation where I have Diancie in versus the Torn, I can always just go hide out into my Coon, which scouts for the Iron Tail. It also wears down his Hurricane PP with pressure, which is huge. So he has like 16 Hurricanes, I believe, and every time he fires off one versus Coon, it uses up 2, so that's pretty solid. This Coon is also a set that can win late game if I can trap his responses to it in the form of Rotom, stuff like Slowbro, like Carmine Psyshock Slowbro, stuff like Carmine Laddie as well. If he's not Carmine Laddie, if he is a 3 attacks Roost or like 3 attacks Defog Laddie, I can actually beat it 1v1 with Carmine and Ice Beam and Rest, so that's pretty nice. This speed is, I think this speed is for like max speed. I think it's like max speed Marowak or something like that. It allows me to like creep a Mawile that's, I think it might even be max speed Mawile. I think like max speed Adamant Mawile, something like that. It was for a benchmark. This match was played a while ago though, so it's not as fresh in my head as it could have been. It definitely outspeeds stuff like Pangoro as well, which is nice. Yeah, so this Suicune is a very, very nice bulky pivot into stuff like Torn, as well as the Laddies, and it does allow me to check stuff like Diggersby better as well. Even though I'm not defensive, like physically defensive, it's still a Coon. It's still got like base 115 defense, so he's still chewing some hits, which is nice. The next mon on my team, and the mon that partners really nicely with this Suicune, is Gothitelle here. So this Gothitelle is aimed at trapping his Latios, depending on the set, aimed at trapping his P2 if he does bring it, and his slow bro. So one of the things about Aster's team is like he has two of the best. I want to say two of the best like responses to Lando in the game, being Slowbro and P2. If I'm like a physically offensive variant, P2 is really solid versus Lando. In case you guys weren't aware, it does get trace, so it can trace the Intimidate. It's actually one of the few mons that can check SD Skystrike Lando because because it can trace the Intimidate and just blow it away with an Ice Beam the following turn, whilst being able to live like a +1 Skystrike because of its insane bulk. On the physically defensive side with Violet. So that is definitely a mod that I'm potentially considering. I feel as though he may bring P2 and Slowbro, but more than likely he's going to bring one or the other, and chances of him running Shed Shell are quite unlikely. And if he does run Shed Shell, it means he's going to be easier for my Coon to take on because he's not going to be like CM lefties. It also means it's going to be easier for my Celestial to chip down. I don't expect Shed Shell on Slowbro though, to be honest. I do expect like a Resist Berry, something like Colbur Berry, very potential. Lots of potential for Colbur here, but yeah, probably lefties as well because he may even opt to bring like an Assault Vest to check Diancie, because FizzDef Assault Vest switches into stuff like mixed Diancie really well on Slowbro. So definitely could see that coming. This Goth does allow me to stall out a Laddie. I can even take Hurricanes quite nicely from Torn. I know Aster does have a tendency not to use Life Orb. He doesn't really like Life Orb Torn, so that's actually pretty nice going into this game. But obviously I'm prepared for the likelihood of him bringing that just in case. But if he's not Life Orb Torn, then his Hurricanes are going to be doing significantly less. It's going to be easier for my Goth to take Hurricanes as well. But Suicune is obviously the better Torn response because it doesn't fear too much about its lefties getting knocked off because it is just so naturally bulky. But yeah, this is the Torn. If I can Toxic, I Toxic his fat like Slowbro on P2. I rest up. If he does like a Suicide Trick Room on the last turn before he dies to Toxic, I can set up a Reflect on that turn, expecting that, and allow me to pivot out to one of my defensive mons and soften the blow of his Trick Room attacker, like something like Mawile or Alola Marowak. So the next one we have on the team is Diancie, Mega Diancie. Going max this week, which allows me to outspeed his Alolan Ninetales, which I think is a potential bring. It also allows me to tie at worst with Latios if he does bring max speed Laddie, which is definitely nice. I can chew any hit from full unless he has Life Orb Surf or something like that, or Steel Wing, like Life Orb Steel Wing. But obviously I can potentially win a tie there. I get up Rocks on a lot because I do force a lot out. His best responses to Diancie include stuff like Assault Vest Slowbro, any variant of P2 really, because P2 is so fat. That's pretty much it. This thing kind of goes in versus his team, meaning that Rocks are likely going to be set up on a predicted switch out on his part. Again, if he brings a mon like P2 to check Diancie, I have Goth in the back to just take advantage of that thing and remove it from the game. So that's really nice. Earth Power is here for the Mawile. If I get one round of Helmet Chip off on the Mawile, it's in range of Earth Power if he's max HP, which is really nice. That Helmet Chip will be discussed in the next mon. Diamond Storm is just a blow away, like a lead Ninetales. Ayoko, even with the timid nature, it's crazy. And obviously I blow away stuff like Torn with Diamond Storm as well, even if he is an Assault Vest variant. Moonblast just really solid for his team. Moonblast deals a ton, even to things that like resist it, like Alola Marowak, stuff like Mawile. They're not going to be appreciating switching on Moonblast at all, and they're going to get destroyed by the coverage on this Diancie. So the next one we have is my FizzDef Tangrowth. I had to go max to avoid being 2-hit KO'd by +2 Play Rough from Adamant Mawile, which I feel is definitely a situation that I could experience. Obviously, like, I'm accounting for max rolls, so that is the reason why. Given how unlucky I am, max rolls are very possible, so have to account for that as best as possible. I do have Synthesis here. If he's like a slow Mawile, like a Trick Room variant of Mawile, I can like Synthesis up on that and force him to take a ton of Helmet Chip, putting him in range of EQ. I think EQ does, if he's like max HP, does anywhere from 40 to 40, like 41, 30, high 30s to like 48, which is really solid. Leaf Storm is very nice for a Slowbro that thinks it can tank a Giga Drain. I can just get like a ton of damage off. If Slowbro's at like 74 or something like that, I just blow it away with Leaf Storm, even though I am running an Impish nature. I ran Impish because if he does decide to creep a relaxed or like sassy variant of Tangrowth, I will be able to get the outspeed. That is by his Mawile. I'm expecting a potential creep, as well as like potentially him creeping me with his Marowak, which is possible. As mixed coverage, Tangrowth does make a lot of sense versus his team. Knockoff obviously stuff like the Laddie and grass coverage for a lot on his team. So having that speed creep could be crucial, but he may opt to run like a lot of speed on Mawile, which would be interesting. I've seen him. He has a tendency to run a lot of bulk and like 252 spreads. So on his Mawile, that is. So I am expecting something similar in this game. But if he does up the speed tiers in this, it just means like Diancy's going to have an easier time taking it out with Earth Power, and it means it's not going to be taking Scalds from my Coon as well, and it's going to be taking EQs a lot worse from my Tangrowth. So the next one we have on the team is Scarfed Lando. So this Lando was pretty solid versus his team. It's a very nice win con late game if I can remove his ground immunities on his team in Laddie and Torn, as well as Rotom C. So if I can remove those, then yeah, Scarfed EQ kind of just goes in. Punishment, we've got the tech on deck for potential CM Bro, as well as CM Laddie. Literally after one Carmine, Laddie just dies to punishment, so that's how crazy this thing is. I'm expecting potentially Carmine, Thunder, like Electric Z for my potential Celesteela, which is a nice switch into common Laddie spreads that don't have electric coverage. So I'm expecting that. If I go hard into my Celly, I can always like make the double into my Lando, scouting for his electric attack. But that's obviously if I'm feeling myself. If I want to play safe, I can always just go into Goth and switch accordingly into Lando after I've sacked off Goth to the Laddie. But yeah, I do think Electrium Z Laddie is likely here. He may also be like Z Memento, but we'll have to see when we get into the game. Stonage is mainly just here to hit the Torn. I can Oko the Torn. If he's like max HP, I think I need him to have taken like rocks, but yeah, Stonage is really solid for that. And U-Turn does a ton to his team. U-Turn does a lot to Laddie. It does a chunk to Rotom. And the main draw of U-Turn here is being able to U-Turn on his responses to Landorus. Like say I've got Landorus in versus Mawile, and I U-Turn on his Porygon 2 or his Slowbro, which, as I mentioned earlier, are really fantastic responses to this Landorus. I can just trap them with my Goth as a result of the U-Turn. So that's a really nice drawing card of U-Turn in this match. And it's obviously nice for momentum. Now the last one we have on the squad is my Celesteela, pretty offensive variant, as you guys can see. But it is really bulky due to the Wakan. So this forces his potential Scarfed or Choiced of some sort Diggersby into situations where it can't just spam EQ versus me or return, because I will get an Autonomize up. If I get an Autonomize up and I have Rocks chip, I've chipped his team down slightly, this thing can actually just win. Especially if I've removed his fat with Goth in the forms of P2 and Slowbro. This thing can really do damage. Explosion blows away Rotom. Earthquake is just here for stuff like Marowak that resist the Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam blows away Laddie at +1 after a Beast Boost, and it destroys Torn as well. So yeah, just a very solid mon here. I can always take like a +2 Laddie's Electric Z from full with the Wakan, which is really nice. I'm not going to let that thing get to +2, of course, but it's nice to have that sort of backup response to Laddie in the back. Obviously, I do have Scarfed Pursuit. I've got Goth, which traps Laddie, and I have potential Speed Tie on my DNC, and he needs Surf to Oko me. So we have some great responses. I also have Calm Mind, Ice Beam Coon. So yeah, feeling very good about this team. We're going to jump into the match and see how it went. Alright, so we're here with a match up against Aster, and as you guys can see, he's up to bring the Ninetales, so Aura Veil could be potentially coming. No P2, so very interesting. My opponent chose not to prep too hard for the Lando or the Diancie, so Diancie is looking very threatening versus his team, as is Landorus once I remove his Torn and Laddie. EQ just does a lot of work to his team. I see the Slowbro, and this is probably like a defensive Slowbro to check my Landorus and potentially Celesteela. Torn could be a number of things. I'm expecting Mawile to be his breaker. He's opted not to bring rocks in a few matchups, so this is either going to be rocks Mawile or just no rocks. Leaning towards no rocks because yeah, he just hasn't really shown that he cares about bringing rocks, which is interesting. But he does opt to bring usually like SD3 attacks on Mawile, which is just as effective, if not more effective than rocks in some matchups. So I can definitely understand that. But It's going to be interesting to see what he's brought. If he has brought a Scarfer, it could be potentially Laddie, it could be potentially Diggersby, although I do think he's going to require breaking power from Diggersby to complement Mawile, because I have a lot of defensive mons on my team that can check Mawile collectively, but a combination of breaking Diggersby and breaking Mawile could really open the floodgates for something like a Scarf Laddie or a offensive Ninetales to go in, as well as Torn. So we're going to jump into the game. I opt to lead off with my Diancie. If he doesn't lead off with Torn, I can get up Rocks versus something like Ninetales if he wanted to lead with Ninetales and get up his Aura, but me leading off with Diancie forces him into a situation where he probably should scout, where I probably should scout for Iron Tail. It forces him to potentially reveal at turn 1. I have shown a tendency to run Protect Diancie in the past though, so he may opt to not Iron Tail turn 1 and instead go for the knockoff. But me going into my Suicune is fairly risk-free. Preserving Diancie's pre-evolution state is also nice for switching into attacks from the likes of Ninetales and the Laddie. So I'm going to go hard out into my Coon here, as he does actually go hard out into his Mawile there. So if he wasn't Steel Coverage Torn, and if he expected me to stay in and go for the Diamond Storm there, I would have put this Mawile in guaranteed range to die to an Earth Power. So not quite sure the thought process behind that play there, but if he had made a double out there into, I don't know, something capitalizing on one of my defensive responses to Torn, that would have made more sense. But Mawile doesn't exactly switch in freely to Coon, so I'm not quite sure what he planned there, but I am just going to go out into my Tang, and we take this player off quite nicely. It only does 43 as he takes that helmet chip, and this turn I am just going to go for the Synthesis as he does go for the Toxic. So going for Synthesis there just capitalized on him potentially going for another play rough. Potentially going for SD, it allowed me to scout some information. He does reveal Toxic, which is important. This means that he's more than likely not going to be Swords Dance. He could be Swords Dance Toxic, Thunderfang, and Play Rough, which is okay, but then he misses out on Sucker Punch for a lot of my faster threats, and it's a set that could come, but I am expecting potentially Toxic 3 attacks or Toxic Stealth Rocks 2 attacks. I don't really see Toxic on a Swords Dance set being too viable this game, but this turn I'm going to knock off, expecting him to go hard out to his Torn or his Laddie here, as he does go Torn, and we're actually going to knock off his E-Belt, which is important information. This tells me that he's more than likely a pretty offensive Torn as opposed to being Assault Vest, which is very nice for my Suicune. The fact that I've knocked off his boosting item means that Coon is just going to switch in. He's not Life Orb, so I'm going to switch into his Hurricanes a lot easier, and this is really nice. Even if he does knock me off here, we do have Rest. Leftovers are very nice on Coon, but not essential to Coon stalling up this Torn and taking it on 1v1, because Hurricane is just going to do pitiful damage to this thing. So he's going to knock, and this turn he's going to go for the Hurricane as we just fire off an Ice Beam here. Now, Ice Beam is a comfortable 2 KO from this range of health. The fact that he's got knockoff Hurricane, and the fact that his E-Belt leads me to believe that he has Steel Coverage and Heat Wave to hit my Diancie and Celesteela respectively. This means he doesn't have U-Turn, and what this means is that this turn he's going to hard out into something that can take hits from my Coon. I could Scald here, predicting his Slowbro to come in and try and fish for a burn. I could also go for Toxic here, predicting his Slowbro or his Laddie to come in here. So going Laddie isn't a bad play by any means, but I feel like either Laddie or Slowbro are going to come in here. So I'm going to make the hard switch out to my Goth here, trapping whatever he wants to bring in, as he does choose to bring in the Latios. So this is really nice. Depending on what set this Laddie is, if he's non-Carmined, we beat this 1v1. If he is Carmined, I get valuable information on this first turn, as nothing he has can take out my Goth. I'm max Bidef, so I live like Devastating Drake. I live everything. I can just go for Foul Play. If he weakens me, if he really gets me low, I can just heal up on his Slowbro. I can just rest up. This is a very nice position for Goth to be in. I'm going to fire for Foul Play. What this awards me is damage off on this Laddie. I don't risk missing with Toxic. I can just go for Foul Play, put him in guaranteed range of my Landorus's U-Turn, as he's going to go for Ice Beam. Only does 20, so this is an interesting play. I think that, I do think this was a Scarf Laddie, and I think him going for Ice Beam was his best means of hitting the Celesteela as well as the Landorus that may have wanted to switch in there, as well as hitting the Diancie for the most amount of damage. as Dancy would resist any dragon attack this lady attempted to fire off versus my Goth. So he's going to go for Ice Beam, I go for Foul Play, and it does a clean 40. So this is a nice 3k while Ice Beam is doing 0 to my Goth. I just throw out for Toxic here, in case he did want to start commanding up, or reveal Roost, but he does just go for a second Ice Beam, so I think this is actually a Scarfed Laddie here. So I'm going to opt to rest up here. I felt as though he may just be lulling me into a false, he may be attempting to lull me into a false sense that he was a Scarfed Laddie, and firing off a couple of Ice Beams followed by a Electrium Z Thunderbolt could have been like his way of taking out my Goth there. So me going for rest ensured that the following turn I would be out of range of his Z move. But he is actually just going to stay spamming Ice Beam. So I think this, yeah, as I said, I think this was actually a Scarfed variant of Latios, which is really nice. So this is one of Suicune's biggest sort of checks out of the way, even though Macoon can beat most Laddie variants 1v1, unless they are Carmine Psyshock. But if he was like Trick, that could have been a bit annoying for my Suicune. So we've got Goth in a really nice position. I think I have burnt like a couple of sleep turns now, so I'm going to wake up the following turn, so I can always switch in quite safely versus his Slowbro and just rest up and trap it after getting off a Toxic. He's going to go into his he's going to go hard into his Diggersby here this turn after Laddie goes down, and I'm just going to make the switch out to my Tangrowth. I live anything from this Diggersby and I get valuable information on his set. He's going to go for the U-turn here, and he's going to crit my Tang, and this crit is very unfortunate. You're going to see later on why this mattered so much. That reveals that he's Adamant banned, which is interesting. Choice Band Diggersby, I don't feel... I feel like it's an interesting set versus a team with the Celesteela, as it does afford me free setup if he locks himself into Earthquake or Return. And yeah, U-turn was his play there, and as it does crit me, you're going to see why that mattered as we get into the game later on. This is going to allow him to switch out into his Torn here. That's alright though, this is just a free switch back into my Coon, as I will be able to take a Hurricane if he does decide to go for it. The fact that he'd gone for Hurricane so many times, I felt like he would predict my Selly to come in here and go for Heatwave. Me going Diancie or Selly there to scout, or just to use as pivots to then switch into my Coon and rest up the following turn after taking a Heatwave or an Iron Tail there. Was a play I think he had to make there because he was really in the back, but he just goes for Hurricane, and this is going to be a potential 2k on my Coon, and I don't want to risk that. I can always heal up with rest on the Slowbro, so I'm just going to switch out here. I'm going to go hard onto my Selly because I've knocked off his E-Belt, and because it's a Taunt, like Taunt's fairly weak without Life Orb, so I know I can easily tank this Heat Wave and knock him out with a Heavy Slam if he does decide to stay in. But he's actually going to switch out here into his Slowbro, knowing he couldn't have killed Selly there, so I do agree with that play by Aster, going out into Slowbro here. No reason for him to risk Torn there, which is one of his best ways of pressuring my team. So he's going to go into his Slowbro here. I'm going to double Heavy Slam, expecting him to go back out into Torn, or go out into Diggersby or Ninetales here, just trying to get some offensive momentum back in his favor, as Goth does more than likely trap this Slowbro. So I'm going to get him here with a double Heavy Slam as he does go into his Mawile. That's going to comfortably to a KO. And I know that I do probably outspeed this Goth, as I'm running a lot of speed on my Selly, and he's just going to make the switch back out into his Slowbro here. So this is pretty nice for me. I'm just going to switch now out into my Suicune, as I can rest up on this Slowbro. Anything you wanted to fire off, I would be able to rest up on. The damage from Heavy Slam revealed that he was a max HP, max defense Slowbro, so I didn't have to fear like offensive Psychic coming from this thing, as Suicune would have been able to live a Psychic from the range of health it was at anyway, because I am so Spidef. So this turn I'm going to rest up as he does switch back out into his Mawile. And this is nice for me. I can just go out into my Tang this turn. Regen has healed that crit off a bit, although if he hadn't crit me, I would be at 75 here. As this player off is going to do 41, he's going to take more chip. I'm going to Synthesis up here, as he does make the switch out to his Torn, so he didn't want to risk me being fast, I guess, like faster than his Mawile if he was like a slower variant, a more bulky variant there. But we do get in there with the Synthesis, as now Taunt is going to come in. So if I hadn't been crit, I would be at 75% at this point, meaning that switching out the following turn would have, in conjunction with my Regenerator, put me at 100. So that's unfortunate, around 100. I'm going to go into my Macoon here, as he does just go for the knockoff again. This is going to allow me to burn another turn of sleep, which is very important. getting Kuhn back in, getting Kuhn awoken is going to be critical to taking on this turn. But that turn I do double out into my Diancie, expecting him to make the switch himself out into the likes of... I actually thought he'd go into Ninetales there, not his Diggersby. Ninetales would have been really nice to potentially set up on Suicune, or even just Encore Lock it, or just click Freeze Dry versus my team, as I don't have the best Freeze Dry responses. Although Kuhn and Goth do still take on Ninetales at neutral. So he's going to go into his Diggersby here. Now, because Diggersby is still not in guaranteed range of Moonblast, it's a roll. And I don't want to risk a roll here. I don't need to, because Diancie is so good in this matchup. It literally just destroys his team. So I'm gonna go hard out into my Tang. If he goes for U-turn, he takes the necessary chip from Helmet to put him in guaranteed range of Moonblast, which means if this scenario repeats itself, I will be able to guarantee take out this Diggersby, even if he does have some HP investment. So I'm gonna go back out into my Tang as he U-turns. And we are at 24 instead of being at 50 as a result of the earlier crit, which is unfortunate, but after the hail and toxic damage, Tang is going to be pretty weakened. I'm going to go hard out into my Diancie here, as he does just fire off the Blizzard. So right here, I'm going to go for the rocks, predicting him to go into Mawile's sack. Mawile's doing fuck all at this point in the match. He's at a range of health where he'll basically just die to another helmet hit from my Tang. I don't really need to keep Tang around for much. I do have Celesteela and Landorus for his Diggersby, and it's banned, so it's not like it threatens my offense in any way. It just threatens my defense, basically. So I'm going to expect him to sack off his Mawile or go hard out into Slowbro if it is an Assault Vest variant, as his Ninetales is one of his best ways of having any chance in this game. So he's going to go hard out into his Mawile here, as we do just get up our rocks, and this is really nice. Going to be able to chip down his Taunt and his Ninetales predominantly, switching in every time, taking that chip. It also puts Diggersby closer into range of Moonblast from my Diancie, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to be able to take him out here with the Moonblast, as nothing wants to switch in and take that hit. Now he's going to bring in his Taunt again, as I am going to go back out into my Coon. As, this process is nice. This is why I had this Coon in my team, because I wanted to have a way of reliably switching in and checking this Taunt every time it came in. He does reveal the Iron Tail there, so that is why we didn't stay in with the Diancie. I felt like it was a pretty obvious bring on his part, as now he goes for the Hurricane and he misses, which is unfortunate, although it only would have done 31, so we would have been able to rest off, take 2 Hurricanes and rest off. As you're going to see here, Hurricane does put us at 23, but we do rest off, which is really nice. Now Suicune's going to be able to basically, like, every time he goes for a Hurricane versus my Coon, it's taking off 2 PP as opposed to 1. So his Taunt, like, even if he somehow like triple crits me or something like that, he'll run out of Hurricanes, which means he can't check. He can't take on like my team as well. He won't be able to check my Goth nearly as well, because Goth can take heat waves, it can take knockoffs after its item's been removed much easier, and I always have Celesteela and Landorus to beat it offensively. So this is really nice. He misses another Hurricane, which is pretty inconsequential, as you will see. He's now going to go out to his Diggersby, as I have burnt 2 turns of sleep, so the next time I attack with Coon, I will wake up, which is really solid. As now I'm just going to go hard out to my Tang. He's going to go for the return here, so had I not got the crit, I wouldn't have died to that return, and it would have forced him to take 2 rounds of Rocky Helmet. But really, I could have preserved Tang for the Slowbro and just gone hard out into my Selly there, and just set up an Autonomize at that point in time, as I would have taken very little from the banded return, because we do resist it, and I do have some nice bulk in the Selly there. So that was why the U-turn crit was unfortunate earlier, but it's not really a big deal. We can just now bring in Diancie and fire for Moonblast and claim a kill, as his Diggersby's gone, which is nice because my Tang is gone too at this point. So both their kind of roles have been fulfilled. Diggersby broke my Tang as a result of the crit and as a result of just being banned, and Tang kind of walled the Mawile and the Diggersby. So they both did their respective jobs, can't really complain about that, as his Taunt is going to come in here. I'm going to make the switch back out into my Suicune, knowing that I wake up on this turn if he does want to go for Hurricane, but he's going to make the double out into his Ninetales. This is nice. The fact that I got up Rocks means it breaks any potential sash on this Ninetales and puts it in guaranteed range of a lot of hits on my team. It means that Moonblast is potential roll if he's offensive, and obviously he's going to be in range of Diamond Storm. He's in range of Diamond Storm at 100, but if he is Sash, he's definitely going to go down to Diamond Storm there. So I'm just going to switch out here into my Gothitelle, as at this point I felt like he was a choice locked variant, but he does reveal Nasty Plot here, and this means that I do have to sack him on to bring in my Diancie here. So I am just going to sack off my Celesteela, as it isn't beating the Slowbro. All it provides with the Slowbro is Explosion into Goth, which is a nice trapping mechanism, but I have my Coon, which takes on this Torn. I have Landorus, which kind of just wins the game at this point. I don't need to preserve my Selly for any particular reason. Laddie's gone down, Mawile's been removed, Diggersby's gone. It is nice versus the Torn, but obviously I have Coon to beat the Torn. So I'm just going to sack off my Celesteela here, because I do want to preserve Goth for a potential Carmine Slowbro in the back, as now I can bring in Diancie here. Now I could have gone for the Diamond Storm here. I definitely could have. It would have just flat out killed this Ninetales here, but as many of you guys know, I get lucked a lot in this brilliant game we play. So if I'd missed Diamond Storm here and then missed, if like he'd somehow lived an EQ, and like if he was like bulky and I had to click Edge to take out this Ninetales, I probably missed that too. So I wasn't trying to fuck with that. I'm just going to go for Moonblast here and take out this Ninetales here, putting it in guaranteed range of U-turn from my Landorus. So obviously, like, I play this endgame really safe, but I have no reason not to. Differential is inconsequential at this point. I've clinched the #1 spot, and like my differential is like miles above everyone else's, so I don't need to like worry about differential here. I'm just going to play it safe, secure the win, as I will be able to take him out with the U-turn here, as I think he goes into his Torn this turn. I go into my Goth so I can just get a nice 6% cheeky leftovers health, as I can just go hard out into my Coon here. He's going to fire off a Hurricane, knock off this turn. I think at this point he's getting really low on Hurricanes. He's going to miss a Hurricane there, but I get a Carmine up, so the following Hurricane would have done like 19. So yeah, Suicune's fat. So I think he ran out of Hurricanes at this point, so he did just go for knockoff. And now he's going to go into his Slowbro. I didn't want to risk this thing being Carmine Psyshock and setting up versus my Intanded with my Suicune and beating me like that, so I'm just going to go hard out into my Goth and fire for Toxic, securing myself the win here. He's going to go for Scald. I don't actually think this thing had Carmine, because he did opt to just spam Scald here, so he was more than likely potentially Ice Beam on this set maybe. I haven't seen Aster's set, so I'll have to watch his side of the match to confirm what his sets were, but he could have been like Trick Room, Lefties, like Carmine or something like that, or just Trick Room, like Recover, Slack off Ice Beam potentially, as a guaranteed way to take out the Landorus. I'm not sure, as well as damaging Tangrowth potentially, but either way, he does reveal Colba, which is a nice way of checking a few things on my team. It's a nice way of him checking Hydreigon, I suppose, so having the Colba in the back could be really nice for that, as well as a few other like dark coverage moves on my team, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to do really anything this game. But that is going to be my week 9 game against Aster. Definitely a fun one. I spent a bit of time on this squad. Obviously, this match it didn't really matter too much, but I felt like this was a match that Suicune and Goth could really just go in. Based on his defensive bonds, like he needed to bring some defensive answers to my offense, and this is the kind of game that Goth just had a real field day in. So it was definitely fun to use this Goth set and see it work out the way it did. Fun to play Aster for the first time. Haven't played him before in the format, I believe. So yeah, it's always fun to play new people. I'm sure he'll do better in the NPL if he sticks around next season in the majors with a team he drafts himself. Although he's performed pretty well with this team, and even though it's not his own team, I think his performance with it has been pretty solid this season. So definitely go and check out his side of the game, check out his channel. I'll leave his link in the description below. And yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the game and the match in the comments. This is definitely a fun one to play, but I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. And unfortunately, Lando didn't get to do anything this game, really. I mean, like, it revenged the Ninetales, but it was a nice win con waiting in the back. But yeah, that is going to be my Week 9 game. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.